The two Jills, a psychologist and psychic intuitive, reveal mind-blowing insights that turn psychology, self-help, and conscious teachings on their heads. Why? Because they work. Real help, sincere growth is here. Welcome to Psyched.
Okay. Hey, Jill.
Hi.
I'm just going to give everybody a little peek in behind the Oz curtain here for a second and how we lead up to the topics. When I sit there and I sort of feel into what's in the topic. And today's topic is going to be about followers. We live in a culture of followers in all different sorts of ways that word applies. And when I started to feel into the energy of this episode and followers, it actually started to really kind of upset me. And the reason being is because what sort of came to my head was following does not give you an identity or a wholeness. It robs you of it. And so that's what started to come through. And we want to kind of discuss what the brain is doing and how we get into that mode and why we would follow at all. What is the impulse behind that?
It's such an important topic, and I'm so glad you're bringing it up because it's right on topic for the Psyched podcast and what we do here. There's been a lot of energy that I've been surprised by in follower energy, whether it's me following somebody, there's somebody's podcast or somebody that I really respect and appreciate what unique work they're doing in the world, and how my energy can get a little weird. I kind of notice this strange side of myself come out as I'm maybe talking about them with somebody else and I recommend them or what I appreciate about them. And then I've definitely been, I don't want to say concerned about it, but aware of not perpetuating codependency in the work that I do with some of us that are content creators. We hate the word followers. It's because it's so cringy, because we don't want, some people, I know I don't want to feel like a leader of them. I may be a leader of ideas and original perspectives and philosophies, but I don't want to be a leader of people. Yeah, it just feels cringy. And some people don't want that responsibility. I just don't want to take away anyone's sovereignty. But some influencers and others that have followers, some of them do want to be a voice of their conscience in a way. And there's actually a lot of people that are followed that have that energy to them of, let me think for you, let me take all the work away and I'll just tell you what's right and what's wrong and what you are and what you aren't. And wow, there's a lot of riskiness and dangers involved in that.
Absolutely. And what you're talking is sort of the modern version, but you just think of religion, right? The original followers, right? The OGs. And it's like you said, there's one mind. You go to somebody for them to tell you what you should think right out of the gate. I don't care what context it comes in. There should be a discernment there. You should not be asking someone else what you should think. And we don't see it, but it creates a very opinionated society. Once we're told, we go with that. And we share that, and we're no longer open. The brain has shut down. It's received its direction. And then it has to perpetuate that direction because religion requires followers. God doesn't need followers. Religion does.
So Jill, this whole idea that somebody is letting someone else do their thinking for them, I feel like what we're both saying is we don't recommend that. I mean, I'm totally fine because there are people that have expertise and experiences and wisdom that I don't have and that you don't have and that others don't have. Hearing someone's ideas is one thing. What do they think about something? But then in another, the next breath being, and what do I think about that? I'm never a fan of, well, so-and-so says, so it must be true. I feel like humanity has really gotten in some horrible situations with that. And I don't like the repression of greatness that I witness within humanity right now, partly due to all factors of what we're describing as follower energy. We're not talking about the number of followers on Instagram. We're not talking about social media. We're not who's the prettiest or who has the best butt or the best makeup. We're talking about actual thought leaders and those where you're putting aside decisions in your life that matter, that really, really matter, that affect your beliefs, that affect your sense of self, and that influence your sense of others. Those are really, really important areas to look at of influence and following.
100%. This is one of the areas where people get almost anesthetized. They don't want the responsibility or the burden of thinking for ourselves. That's one aspect. Another aspect is the brain likes consensus, agreement, validation. It likes to be right. And in order to be right, there has to be something that's wrong. So it breaks up what could be beautiful, expansive ideas and conversations into a dichotomy of right and wrong, as if we even knew what was right and wrong. That is such a deception in and of itself. And this is a house of cards. And I'm just so concerned because I know the way the brain works. So many times there'll be a religious leader or a guru, and they'll be on a pedestal because that's what followers do. Followers have to show their loyalty. They have to show their adulation. That's the nature of following. You're right. And so you give over to that mind. But then at a certain point, you see that clergy kick a dog, or you see, a politician say something bananas. And the brain has a way of dismissing or rationalizing away those red flags just to stay on the codependent idol. It doesn't want to give up its idol. It's really loath to do that. And so without those red flags of people in high positions behaving badly, we would never wake up. But truthfully, most of us are not waking up anyway, and we follow these people off the cliff. Oh, it makes me really crazy.
Energetically, it almost looks like a spell to me, that the brain is under a spell. And I find that so fascinating when I observe that in someone. I have a family member that just feels like Meghan Markle can just do no wrong. And she's such a victim here. And this person in my life has done that before. They're very black and white about who's good and who's bad and who's the hero and who's the enemy. So I'm not surprised by her take on it, but I feel like some of us just have maybe more giftedness and the nuance of it. I'm not looking for a hero or a villain. I know it's troubling to some people, but I feel like I'm better equipped as a human and supporting others by acknowledging that there is nobody that's beyond reproach. There is no sinlessness in this reality, to use Christian dogma. So when somebody of any class or stature within a religious structure or political structure falls from grace, I'm not like, well, now they're out. I'm like, okay, so they showed us they're human. They showed us they have frailties like we all do. And my brain doesn't break at that, but I do recognize that some people that are more susceptible to letting someone else do their thinking for them, it is a pattern they seem to find themselves in. If they dump one hero, they're just looking for the next person to prop up on that pedestal until they disappoint them. And that's problematic.
Yeah, there's a huge vulnerability there. And it does start out as codependent. It starts out as, I need something. You have to watch the brain already saying you are not enough. There's something in there that precedes your desire to go and join and become a follower in whatever group that is. And it is almost like you're brainwashed because they do tend to be groups. Groups are very persuasive. So it's not just that you are a follower, you are in a group of followers. This gets very dangerous on a grand scale. A lot of people of one mind, all of them not thinking for themselves, is deeply concerning. It makes us the opposite of what we need to be. It makes us opinionated. It makes us closed off. It makes us definitely not humble. And then in groups, there is a justification for behaving badly. If everybody's doing it and there's this anonymity and you were told by a leader and everybody agrees, there's just a lot of misbehavior in that. I'm just feeling the kind of, enormity of it. Like, we are not taught to think for ourselves at any juncture in our lives. When we go to school, we're told what to think. We're told what to study. We're told how to live. When I was young, I was yelled at for asking questions. People didn't know the answers to what I was asking, of course. And if they were open, it would have pointed out to them that they really didn't know and they probably shouldn't be teaching the way they were teaching. This was in religious school for me. I probably should have been like, this is what we think, rather than this is the way it is. And this is what God is. And this is what good people are. It was so messed up, honestly, that people who don't know are teaching people who don't know, everybody acting as if they know. And it goes from this codependent, the leader needs the followers, the follower needs the leader, to just pure dependency. And that is a complete loss of you. It doesn't give you an identity. It strips you of your identity.
Becomes your identity.
What?
Becomes their identity.
Becomes their new identity, but
or maybe the only one they had, right? That's what I'm saying. I think for some people, they didn't lose it because still some of them, I think, never had it. I think some individuals never had a sense of themselves separate from this following kind of thing. And I put politics in this too. Identity politics are so many ways of okay, well, what are you? Who are you? Oh, I'm, and it's for many humans what they're following. Ideology, teachers, teachings, a lot of people put up on pedestals as better than them. When you mentioned earlier that some individuals may find themselves, if it feels more new to them, they may found themselves in a follower position because they felt like they needed something. I also feel like there's this type of follower that is somehow naturally attracted to something, which is very similar and probably two sides of the same coin. But I just want to point that out because some people may feel like, no, the last person I followed, I didn't need anything. I just fell in love with them. But what I want to point out is you fell in love with your idea of them. Now, one could say, well, was it the followers' idea of them, or was it this carefully manufactured facade of them? Either way, it's the same outcome, right? Because there are individuals that are followed and they didn't come up with some nefarious scheme to put people under a spell, or there was no marketing team and PR of, let's hide this and let's push this to the front about when we talk about this person. Sometimes it just happens that there's something very charismatic, there's something very likable about a person, and it's not a spell that was cast upon you. It's almost like a self spell of, yes, they're our person. Yes, this is who I've been looking for all along. Have you seen that too, Jill?
I do see it like what people do to movie stars. Right? They create an idea of an image of that movie star and they need it upheld. Their whole being is wrapped up in it. So if this person falls from grace, they tumble too. And so the brain has a mechanism for that, to make sure that you don't tumble. And it has this way of ignoring what doesn't fit the narrative and taking in what does fit the narrative. And if we don't know that our brain is selective in the way it amplifies or minimizes incoming stimuli, then we wouldn't know to be on the lookout for information that doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah.
We all have to be looking for that at all times in order to stay out of this kind of group think, which is so seductive. It's really seductive. I don't fault. This isn't, these aren't bad people. This is the way the brain operates. There are certain conditions that create, I think you said it well, is the identity. I want to identify. I want to feel like I belong. Maybe I've moved to a new town and I don't know anybody. I'm going to go find some groups. Okay. It's that vulnerability is just what I'm talking about. And you go to schools, kids go off to college, you go to a new job. Who knows what creates that insecurity? We all have it in some aspect in certain situations that would create that propensity to be like, let me just get comfortable here. Let me just find like-mindedness, until that can literally take you over. And it is, like you say, it's you giving yourself over because you just want it to feel comfortable. And once you do, you just shut off. You're like, take me where you will. I don't care. Right?
Dependency, vulnerability, they're both really related here, aren't they? So we talked about I need something. We talked about I love something. And I also want to add some people's intense desire to feel like they believe in something, the power of belief for some individuals. And that fits right in here. There was one audience member that mentioned she was very devoted, and it was a guru type of individual. She went to a retreat of that person's, and she told me the story of how she was so excited about this retreat, meeting the guy for the first time, and it was going to be a weekend thing. And she was coming down the driveway with somebody else that was also going to go on the retreat. And the guy came running down the driveway screaming at them because they were driving too fast, or they were supposed to park at the end of the road, or they just, in that instant, saw this other human version that was not attractive and not guru-like at all from the image they had of him. And it sounds from the way she described that as if, to use my words, the spell broke. And I think they stayed for the retreat, but it was not at all the type of experience they thought they were going to have when he was still on the guru pedestal that he was before he acted in the way he did very thoughtlessly. So this spell being broken, I guess my point with this is it doesn't have to be so devastating when you can remind your brain with new thoughts, because yes, you're going to have thoughts in your brain, and you can just add new thoughts to the brain that says, okay, yes, I think maybe I'm giving this person more credit than they deserve. Maybe I'm not seeing their other sides that wouldn't be as attractive to me and wouldn't be as godly if it's a religious leader, or as wholesome or on policy for a politician. Just adding those thoughts make it less of a crash and less devastating to not if, but when eventually find out that they've got other sides that got edited out or carefully managed, kept behind the scenes. It's so interesting how there might be a part of us, almost like in a fictional fantasy writer kind of version of ourselves, that is very bored with the highs and lows of the other people in our life or in ourselves. It's like, yeah, I've got good sides, I've got bad sides, so does everyone else I know. But this person, all they've got is good sides, right? And it sort of doesn't give credit to the people that are actually in our lives that have amazingly good sides, and maybe even some great sides to them. It's like the brain says, no, you guys have got too much bad stuff, and I already know what your bad stuff is, and you're not an interesting story to me at all. So you guys don't matter, you don't exist. But this person's perfect.
Exactly. I mean, there's this great naivete, which is our wholesomeness, that wants to say there is a nirvana here. There is an ideal. There is a way to be your best self. And that's really who we want to be, and what we're looking for when we go out seeking. We want to be, whether it's activism, we want to be our best selves. Forget the fact that we're, being rude and screaming at people and, God damn it, we're here for the earth, and we can behave this way because, you're killing our earth. We're not being our best selves when we're following in these steps. And that should be a red flag to us. The universe always gives you a chance to come back online. It's not going to let you fall too far. You can let yourself fall. That's your choice. But everybody you idolized, literally everyone, I promise you now, I can say this without any hesitation, will fall from grace. They will. There is not an ideal, but the brain still says there is. And you've said this so many times, how they idolized Jesus. Jesus wasn't looking for followers, right? And they made it about him and not his message.
Mm-hmm.
And, just took it all in the wrong direction. He didn't want to be idolized. And the things that they did in his name, after, of course, they killed him, but then the things, that we do in God's name, we behave very badly when we come under the spell, whether it's God's, Jesus's, my teacher, a politician, a guru, it doesn't matter. So every one of them will implode at a certain point. And that's when we can get out of the spell. And in fact, I would say those are like the fail safes. It's almost like, wake up, wake up. Instead of saying, oh, I'm awake, we are trying to get ourselves back to sleep. Maddening.
If you enjoy the brain telling you deceptive things to make you feel in an altered state, your brain is going to keep doing that job for you. This whole idea, Jill, that the brain, and what, again, this consistent theme we have of watching what the brain is doing. And if we like to be in an altered state that's not really based in reality, I guess that's okay, as long as it's not harming you and not harming anyone. But I know I have in my, radar the terrible tragedies that have happened. I mean, the Jamestown massacre is, one of the worst and scariest stories of followership, right? And the idealization of this Jim Jones, who was an addict. He was not well. He may have started out well. It sounds like he had some very likable qualities. He was very much for racial equality and benevolent sorts of, yeah, that's a godly man. And either it already had a dark side or it got a dark side at some point, but it's just so it can have tragic consequences. And I am concerned. Somebody may not have learned critical thinking or had that fostered at home. I did. My parents were very much a fan of, well, what do you think about this? They were very supportive and encouraging of the critical thinking we as humans have available to us. Some teachers were supportive of that. Some were offended by it. Like you said, when I asked questions, they were like, okay, you're a problem if you're questioning my authority or something. And others were like, oh, great question, Jill. So there's all walks of life here. But I do believe that all humans are capable of critical thinking. Even if they really haven't used that muscle before, they can create not only a doubt of self, but a doubt of others. Because most people that follow in these follower patterns, my instinct tells me, it's not that they don't have doubt. It's that their doubt is only about them. And they don't give enough doubt to other people. So they're proving they do have critical thinking skills in a way, because critical thinking and doubt are somewhat related. What if this isn't true? What if I'm not good at this? But then to only apply that criteria to self and not to others, why wouldn't they, right? Let's appeal to their logic here. Why wouldn't they also be saying, now, are they really as good at that as they are acting like they are? What if they're not? And does that mean they have no value and worth in society? Or does it mean I just take with a bit more, suspicion some of the claims that they make? The other one is this NXIVM thing. Oh my God. Followers tell stories about whom they're following that are often highly suspect and sometimes wildly inaccurate. One of the stories that the NXIVM followers will say regularly about their guru is that he's a genius. Well, apparently he did an online IQ test and it said he was a genius. So to me, might he have strong skills and things? I think he did and does, but that does not mean that they should. It's just tragic what happened there too.
Yeah, but that's what we're saying, right? The brain will amplify anything to serve its purpose. And what we're saying is, please understand that's your purpose. If you're telling the brain, make this guy everything so that I can just go back to sleep in my life and all is taken care of, if that's what you're looking for, your brain is going to be like, I'm on it. This guy took an online thing that qualifies. He's a genius. You can manipulate anything to support your arguments. And I read a lot of the people who have come out of a very radical, either an anti-vax or, people that have just ruined their families. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is not the ideology, but the fact that because the brain will do more of what you're already doing, when you go on a computer and you start amplifying and you are digging your own grave, because the brain has the ability to just go down that rabbit hole with you because you asked it to. And it is very hard to pull out of that. And people are losing their families, they're losing their kids. It takes over their lives. And they may be extreme versions, but we are all extremely susceptible to this. If you're going on your computer to say, is that true what that guy said? Say, now tell me why it isn't true. Please put in both sides, because you think you have the capacity for being discerning. What the brain is operating when you are not aware of it. And the things that it holds on to, you're not in control of that a lot of times. So you're going to come out on a side. Or some ways, it's better not to have opinions and just have conversations. You don't have to have opinions, really, because things are just morphing all the time. Opinions are very transient. And forming them locks us in a little more than we need to be. And you are very open to people's opinions, but you're not taking them in to make a decision about what you believe. There's infinite data out there that can take all sides. And the bottom line is we just don't know.
Yeah. It also feels relevant to look at what the brain is doing for the people that are being followed. The beings that are being followed, their psychology, their energy, the way their brain is working amidst them can be very convincing. And I am being very neutral here. That doesn't have to mean it's automatically for bad and malevolence. And it doesn't automatically mean it's benevolence or for good, right? It's just a neutral thing to consider, is that some people, through charisma, convincingness, there's something about them that when they say something, it has more weight. And for some individuals that they never had a voice like that in their life that they loved or admired or believed in, again, it takes two. It takes two to be a follower and to be followed. It really does.
We run in a little bit. I don't want to talk about the social media aspect of it, but if you're looking for a guru, you're going to go to the ones that has 2 million followers. And you're going to decide for yourself that all these people have vetted this person. So you don't have to do a lot of the research. Those 2 million followers have done it for you. This person must know. I'm all in. So you can get trapped in there. You have no idea, just because there were 2,000 views, whether 99% of the people thought this was a circus act.
Great point. And the certifications too. Well, so-and-so vetted them, right? So-and-so works with them, whether it's, in the kind of consciousness field. Well, Deepak Chopra said they were good, or, Oprah uses them, so they must be great. Anyway, whomever you're kind of like, okay, if they say it's true, then it must be true, whoever that is for you. And most of us have someone. And I don't think that has to be a bad thing. I have people in my life, personally and professionally, or just, a public figure, that if they say something is good or works or they like it, I may kind of give it another look. But I'm not giving it a full pass just because. And that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Exactly.
You out of self-love, you benefit from some act of what you said before, discernment and your own personal vetting. If you don't know how to do that, then search for that on the internet. How to vet someone's credibility, how to question, or even just looking up online. I remember being very suspicious of these water studies by this doctor, I think in Japan, that he put little notes on these water crystals. And if he wrote bad on one, it was all gross water, and the water crystals ended up being just toxic and gross. And then somebody else wrote love, and it was, oh, beautiful crystals, oh, so symmetrical, and oh, our thoughts create our reality. Oh my God, we proved it. You know what I mean? And at some point I'm like, do we know? I know a lot of people that think a lot of positive thoughts, and they've got a lot of challenges in their life. And I don't think this is working the way we think it does. So I did some digging on the internet. I was like, is there any contrarian views about these studies or about this doctor? And it was harder to find because his work has become really, really popular. But yes, there were criticisms. And one was a very, looks like a respectable person that was just frustrated by what he deemed silliness of this whole idea. And that this isn't science, and nobody's been able to replicate what he did. That's a sign that the study was flawed. He questioned his resume, that he had like a doctor of metaphysics, which is different. And I'm not saying it's not a PhD, but when somebody walks around saying, I'm a doctor, I'm like, of what? Of what? Because if it's a doctor of metaphysics or an MD or a PhD in philosophy or a chiropractor, that's a different level of verifiable credibility. And so I'm not putting him on a ranking. I'm just aware. Oh, okay. And if I didn't have a PhD or an MD, I wouldn't call myself a doctor. I don't like it that I'll just own it. I don't like it that chiropractors call themselves doctors.
Yeah.
I'll get a lot of hate on that one. I'm okay with that. I'm not a follower of chiropractors.
Right, exactly. So it's being nimble. It's being, what do you call it? Like cognitively nimble, and being able to change sets and allow for different situations. And you don't realize how much you're closing down by being a follower. And I hope that this causes people to think twice about where they're following blindly. And you and I talked about go get second opinions. Like, just because somebody's a doctor, that doesn't mean they have all the answers. Like, we have to be on board at all times, even in areas where we want to just abdicate our responsibility. You don't get to do that here. If you become a follower, eventually things are going to go poorly. They just do, either for your person or for you. And I will say, I believe that's by design, because we can only delude ourselves so hard and so long. Like I was saying, when you see these people who are coming out, these are educated people who are coming out of the trance of searching online, getting the information, getting the data. That's what we're told to do, but not realizing how much is misinformation, but also not understanding how our looking for information is doubling down on a point. What you seek and you shall find.
Your brain will make sure of it. There's a part of me that just feels like, oh, what can we do? One strategy I would like to offer someone that they're starting to maybe wonder if they are under what I've called a spell. You probably know somebody that isn't under the spell or has been kind of looking at you sideways, wondering if your spell's going to break. Go ask them. Like, I notice that I really believe this, or I really love this person. And I get the sense that maybe you're not as into that person, or you're not as into that idea. Can you tell me more about what you're thinking about it, or what you're seeing about the situation or the policy or that person? And then just listen. Put your hand over your mouth. Watch your brain. If it's like, but, and it wants to convince, just receive. Ask them their opinion and receive. And watch for these things. If a part of you feels like it is your job to defend that person or that belief, you're proving to yourself the power of the spell. Because these really, really good spells need almost like warriors to keep the spell enforced. And some of the spells are very much us and them and like warring factions. And they make it seem like it is your obligation to protect the reputation. So watch for that as well. And some have been in organizations where they've actually been taught that. There's actual training about apologetics and Christianity, that kind of thing. Others, it wasn't taught to you, but you just somehow, it was an idea that was reinforced or your brain put there of, no, it makes me look bad if I'm not right about this person or that thing. So if I'm wrong about that, then I wasted all this time and all this energy and years. So I have to protect my own self. It's my ego, my reputation on the line. So just watch for all of that. And get help if you need it. These can be really sticky things that are hard to break free from. I'm a fan of breaking free so that you can really experience more of what you are. Some individuals that have been in really, really sticky thought bubbles and spells, and I don't mean literally spells. It's a belief that has a layer of bubble, and the bubble pops and you go, whoa, wait a minute, what? Oh my God, now all of a sudden it's super clear because the bubbles burst. Some individuals have been in really, really sticky situations like that, and it takes years of assistance to help with that. And I'm not trained or I don't specialize in that, but I've definitely done some helping in my own way.
You know, when we talk about the brain's kind of 1-2 punch in that, it doesn't allow you to pull yourself out easily. Once you're in something, your brain's like, well, you wanted to be in here. Why are we jumping ship now? Let's keep forging ahead. So the brain is still on the original path. And it does take a little while to shift sets. And within that time, the brain has a lot of backstops. So now once you've given yourself over to this community or this religion or whatever, there is shame about saying, wait a minute, everything that I thought was right, now I'm calling into question. So there's this idea that I don't want to feel that, kind of you were saying, but also we tend to cut off people who don't agree with us or who are judging us for being part of this groupthink in whatever form it comes, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. So I know a lot of people who are losing friends over their political choices. And then you could see how that further enhances and entrenches, because now you're only around people who are sharing your point of view. And I always say, like, I get so annoyed when my husband disagrees with me, but I want him to. I want somebody to challenge me. I want somebody to disagree with me. And we don't think that we want that. When we're looking for a relationship, we don't typically think, I want somebody who I'm going to spar with, but you do. You actually really do. Otherwise, you both sink into the quicksand. And he is very good at pulling me out of quicksand. I'm very good at pulling him out of quicksand. But if we both agreed on everything, we would be useless to each other.
Yeah. The funny thing about following and followers is at the beginning, it always feels good. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, these are the only people I hang out with now. And my brain has decided that anyone that doesn't see it this way is something bad. An idiot, they don't think for themselves, they're sheeple, they're sinners, enlightened, they're not awake yet. There's just a whole bunch of bad, negative things that are attributed to those that don't think like you do. And that's a huge alarm bell too, because it's not true. They aren't less valuable or less intelligent just because they don't see things the same way that you do. And I mean, oh, this is I love this one, and it is one of my strengths. I'm really, really good at being able to stand in the middle of a super contentious issue and go, I get you guys. I see your points, and you guys, I see your points too. And some people, it's almost like they refuse to do that. They refuse to give any credit to either side. They're just like, no, my side is the only one that has the good points, Jill. I don't want to hear anything good. Or intelligent or rational or logical about the other people. And I'm like, but you all love kids. I mean, you all love your families. You all love kids. I mean, what are you arguing about with this issue or that issue? It's just so bizarre how we misrepresent the other sides in a very ungenerous manner.
I like what you said. When any conflict de-escalation, right, is about trying to find what's common. And that is not what we are doing. Whenever somebody, just energetically, when somebody doesn't agree with us or they argue with our point, we double down. We don't realize that we are getting deeper into our own hole. We sometimes lose track of whether we even believe what we're saying because we're in a dynamic that's conflictual. It's really fascinating.
What is the brain doing there, Jill? Can you talk us through? I mean, obviously it's a form of denialism, but what is going on in the brain when there's a part of self that's saying, I know I'm wrong about this, but I'm in too deep. I have to stick with it.
So the double down happens when you're not so sure about something. It's kind of like a fledgling idea that somebody put in your head. But then somebody comes and says, oh, I don't think that. And however that conversation starts, these are very insidious things, but you start arguing that point. And once you start arguing that point, the brain's like, okay, that's our point. We own that. I'm going to continue to argue that point. The brain is beautiful, and what you do once, it will do again for you over and over and over again. The brain is very patterned. So if you tell the brain you want to argue about potato, the brain's going to argue it for you. And the problem is, the brain is so quick and so automatic that it starts to happen before you could just hear somebody say something. You'll be like, yeah, that guy, I don't agree. Listen to what he's saying. The brain will start to be primed to hear things. It's just the way it happens. It's on the lookout for the things that you put it on the lookout for. That's the thing people don't understand. We set the trajectory, but once it's set, it runs behind the scenes and it strengthens and it moves into something almost unconscious. So I liken it to when you start driving a car. There's so many things you have to remember. You need the clutch, you need the brake, you need to look behind you, you need to put on your seatbelt. And it's very choppy and messy because the brain has to think of everything consciously each time. But after you start driving, you get to a place, you don't know how you got there. You don't remember turning on your blinker. It becomes pushed down to a layer of operation that you are not consciously working with every day. And we never dip down in that layer. So we have to somehow get that layer. That's the automatic layer. I don't even like to call it unconscious. It's just the automatic layer. It's the patterned layer. We have to bring that back into our operational, conscious, working mind. But we don't do that unless a guru or somebody blows up. That's the opportunity.
Or unless they listen to a podcast like this, right? And the belief one we did, right? Where we asked the perfect bubble burster, is that true?
Yeah.
Is that even true? Those bubbles, they may feel super cozy and high functioning. And after the spell breaks, I don't know I have never heard of a story of somebody who's the bubble burst of the belief. And they were like, I'm so bummed that my bubble burst. They normally, there's, grief and sadness and oh my God moments. But normally it's like, oh my God, I can breathe again. What the hell was I doing in that belief system? What the hell was I thinking? How did I not see it? What was going on there? And I hope this episode actually helps them understand what was going on there, because I don't feel I understand where the shame and the guilt and all that stuff comes from, but also it probably started out as very logical and very rational and very agreeable. You probably never would have even started had you known what it was going to lead to. I think humanity and the way the brain works and psychology and psychopathy and sociopathy is just so fascinating because it's so sneaky.
It is sneaky. It doesn't happen all at once. You don't walk into a group think and take it in all at once. Your brain is online when you walk into these things and you are asking, do I think this? Do I believe this? And then at a certain point, when you decide, yeah, that sounds good, it's a slow burn. It's so insidious. I don't fault anybody for being so stuck in their opinions that they can't find their way out, because I get it. I totally get it. It doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you naive. It can happen to anyone at any time. And if that's your constant exposure, if you're going to work and that's happening every day, what do you think is going to happen? If you're in relationships where everybody's talking about the same thing, what do you think is going to happen? And you and I are just asking everybody, just don't sit there. It's really not doing you a service, and it's quite the opposite. You haven't realized that you've lost yourself, and get into an argument with somebody in that, you risk being ostracized. You risk being canceled. There's a risk there now once you're in it of thinking for yourself.
Whether you're somebody who wants people to follow you, be aware of what's going on there. Why do you want to be followed? Do you need to be followed? And is that true? Right? And if you're somebody that does tend to idealize another person, and you've been in a situation of being, horribly disappointed at the reality of their humanity, then, hugs to you. It's sad to be disappointed in somebody that you believed in so much, or that you wanted to believe in so much. That hurts part of us. But there's another way to operate, especially with your brain, to help you be less susceptible to putting someone in an unfairly idealized position relative to yourself, or relative to the other people that you're closer to in love and life. It's sad, isn't it, that somebody would put on have an idealized version of, let's say, Oprah, but not their sister. Like their sister sucks, but Oprah is the best. Or, Justin Bieber is amazing, but your son, he's kind of nothing special.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God, it's just so. Oprah has sisters. They probably don't think she's the bomb. So that's actually an interesting thing to think about. Those that are closest to the ones that you're idolizing probably don't think they're as great as you do. And maybe you are seeing something special in their giftedness that a loved one isn't willing to see because they're too close to them. But it could also be that they're not as great as your mind is making them, as your brain is making them up to be.
Yeah, there's no perfection here. The brain still goes for it. I don't know. We still are putting the brain in the direction of looking for perfection.
Yeah. I cringe a little bit, Jill, when I hear someone talk all, starry-eyed about someone. It just feels gross when somebody is, whether it's Tony Robbins or Dr. Highland, he's a functional medicine, I think, or Mark Hyman or Highland or something.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
this gastro, or he's a gut microbiome kind of guy. But this sense of, they're the best. And I just feel it's like, are you making them out to be more than the specialty and the expertise that you're benefiting from? Are you also pretending that means that they're a great life partner, a great parent, a great sibling, a great everything? I don't think that does anyone any good, including the individual doing the following.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. If somebody needs to be followed, that's a red flag. If somebody is followed, you can't stop people from doing what they do. I mean, just even what happened with the Dalai Lama recently, right?
Oh my God.
Like, what a shit show.
Wow.
And
we're talking about the tongue sucking incident, by the way, with the boy. Public, in front of people. I mean, all of it was just so messed up. The John of God scandal that came out, in recent, or, over the past 10 years, was really hard on some individuals that had actually felt healed from him. And what I said to my friends, literally, I have friends that saw John of God. I said, they were like, I don't even know what this means in terms of my healing. I said, why does this have anything to do with the healing?
yeah.
Why can't it be true that you were healed by him and he has these other criminal tendencies? Why is it impossible to be both? And I know why. It's because their brain had said, he's John of God, and John of God wouldn't do that. Even in the name, it's guru.
Yeah. And that's what the brain does. It really is. It's very black and white up there. To me, this is a messy one. It caught me off guard when I really started to think about how we lose ourselves in our opinions. We lose ourselves somehow. I never really thought about it like that before. And why do we hold those so dear and so fast? It creates problems in relationships. But I think anybody listening can take their own journey, into, if this is true, what starts to snowball? Like, I just think of all the relationships that have been compromised and for no reason.
And directly related to what you're saying, Jill, is that the distinction between opinion and fact within someone's brain is not clearly identified enough, right?
No.
Opinions become fact in certain instances in a very destructive way, right? And like you brought up the topic of vaccines, that there was a lot of differing medical opinions. It's a medical opinion, right? Are there studies? Yes, but different studies can show different things. There were conflicting data. There were a lot of different approaches to that. On a very softer tone, I think of the same family member that has a super strong opinion that Meghan Markle is somehow closer to God than the rest of us. She also refuses to date certain people that it's almost like, I can't date anyone that doesn't think Tori Amos is like the best gift to musical abilities ever. And it's like, what are we doing?
It's a way to cut off relationships. We don't have to shut people out because we don't know how to talk to someone who has a different opinion. And we tend to avoid that, which is creating a deeper divide. So it's like what you say, just if somebody says something, you're like, oh, I hear what you're saying. I see that differently. That saves you from digging your opinion in your own brain deeper. It saves you from that entrenchment process we talked about before, where slowly it takes you over. And then it also keeps this openness. And it's the same thing. If you go into a conversation with, I'm probably going to disagree with this person, and that's okay. There's a softness there that allows two people of differing opinions to be in a space. Right now, there's not a lot of room for anybody else in our space that doesn't think the way that we do. So to expand the field, as it were, it's a beautiful thing. Oh, I see that differently. There's no aggression in that. That alone could break a bubble.
Totally.
Rather than giving your bullet points.
Yeah. Grace is another word for the softness. I love the word grace.
Yeah.
And then redetermining what you think about disagreement. That disagreement means argument, and it doesn't. It just means not agreeing. There's no crime in that. There's no room for militia and radicalism for groups to not agree. It's okay to disagree. And you were talking about that in your marriage. Jeff and I, there are so many things that I'm so glad that he's not that other family member, because we would have never ended up together if he demanded that I love NFL football and that my favorite team is Dallas Cowboys. Well, I can't be with anybody that doesn't love the Dallas Cowboys like I do. I mean, it's just like, that's such a small part of what he is and who he is. I mean, it's just like, what are we doing? Anyway, that's not Jeff, right? But there are so many things that we see differently. For years in the US presidential elections, we would cancel each other's vote. Like, did you vote? Did you vote? And then we may say who we voted for. I'm like, yeah, we cancel each other out. We're a neutral family.
We did that. Yeah.
It happens. It totally happens. And we flop. Neither one of us is an ideologue for any one party. Anyway, yeah, I guess I'm a horrible follower for people that are like looking for consistency and like, oh, Jill follows this. I flip and flop and explore. I'm curious about so many different things. If somebody's trying to figure out what I am or who I am, they're going to be sorely disappointed really quickly. Right.
All right. Well, I hope this came out in some kind of cohesive way. It feels very jumbled in my head, honestly. I think we should wrap it up and hope that people in this case can make sense out of this and apply it to their lives in a way that seems appropriate.
There's a lot here.
It's hard to follow. I'll say that.
And we're not supportive of following blindly anyway, so that's good. We can come to struggle.
We did. You're going to have a lot of trouble with this one. All right. We be done.
Thanks so much, Jill.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.